Marks 2 years since the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe v. Wade. While abortion remains legal in Illinois, officials with Planned Parenthood say they've seen several effects from the decision. Illinois Capitol Bureau Chief Max Cotton reports on what that decision meant for Illinois.
It was a decision that didn't necessarily come as a surprise to us here in Illinois.
Julie Ewell with Planned Parenthood of Illinois says the organization was preparing well before June 24th, 2022 for a post-Roe world. It's why the organization spent years successfully pushing for several new laws codifying abortion rights in Illinois, regardless of what the U.S. Supreme Court ruled. That also meant preparing for an expected influx of patients.
Because of a lot of that preparation work and, hiring more staff, expanding our physical footprint, opening new health centers, we've actually been able to accommodate the surge in patients and keep it so that the wait time for appointments has not increased significantly.
Planned Parenthood of Illinois says since Dobbs, it's seen a 47% increase in the number of patients seeking abortion care. A quarter of patients seeking abortions in Illinois are coming from other states. That number was 3 to 5% before Dobbs. Eric Scheidler, who heads the Aurora-based Pro-Life Action League, says those numbers are proof things have gotten worse for his cause in the land of Lincoln.
The overturning of Roe v. Wade has really done nothing but to embolden abortion advocates in the state. Here in the state of Illinois, it's only meant more abortion, more abortion, more abortion.
Over the past 7 years, the Illinois legislature has repealed its abortion ban trigger law, codified abortion rights into state statute, permitted Medicaid to cover abortion, and repealed the parental notification law. Despite this, he's still pleased Roe was overturned.
The overturning of Roe v. Wade, you can't help but see that as a victory because it took so many years of effort. Making the case in front of the American people that this issue matters.
Ewell says Dobbs has brought the issue front of mind to people across Illinois and the country.
Abortion bans do not stop people from having and needing abortion. They just make it more difficult to access.
In Springfield, Max Cotton, WGEM News.